The Sloppy Ducks defeat USC. Dan Lanning squashes rumors Oregon State ready to muck up the Pac-12 race, maybe. And journalism ethics take a hit. Hello, welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I'm Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian and OregonLive, and I'm joined, as usual, by KOIN 6's Brenna Greene, who I know has a lot to say about the ethics thing regarding journalism. We're going to get to that. But first, let me remind you that we have a subtext campaign going where you can receive text from myself, Bill Oram, James Crepia, Nick Daschel, etc. My phone's been blowing up. Those guys have been texting like crazy. I've texted a little bit. I've been slacking here and there, mainly because I was on the road and I forgot my password. But anyway, I've been back to texting. And all you have to do to get involved is text to 503-386-0095. You will receive a link back to you. Click the link and you can start a 14-day trial. All right, Brenna, it's been a minute. How you been?
Just
plugging along.
I'm better than the Blazers.
Woo, boy.
That's our benchmark.
Yeah, it was obvious things were going to start getting ugly when they started that road trip at Sacramento after being 3-4. The couple, semi-surprising wins, I guess. Detroit, Toronto, not great teams. Who was the other win? Oh, they got one against Memphis, who was 0-6 at the time or whatever. But yeah, it's starting. They're starting to play teams that are just flat out better. The Cleveland game was fascinating to watch because Donovan Mitchell was amazing. We'll talk more about that later because I do have a take on Donovan Mitchell and how in relationship to Scoot Henderson. But first, let's get to probably the most interesting local topic this week, I think, and that was the fact that Texas A&M's job came open. Jimbo Fisher got fired. They're paying that man $70 million to go away, and it can't be offset by a new job. He could get a job somewhere for $6 million a year, and he's still going to get the 70, the full set. It's just amazing. It's Texas A&M folks are ridiculous, but what that said right away is that that's a booster system or what have you that would have no problem spending $20 million to buy out Dan Lanning if they really wanted him. Dan Lanning's name was floated around as being, I guess the top two targets for them were maybe Lanning and Dan Campbell, the coach for the Lions. But Dan Lanning came out and just squashed it with what I would say was a very well delivered and executed statement. So before I dissect it a little bit more, let me get your opinion on what he said to the fans who were just wondering, oh my God, are we going to have a third coach bail on us in a row?
So
nice sigh.
I know. Well, I think I'm sighing mostly as it relates to one of our other topics in this podcast. So, we will get to the Carissa Thompson of it all at some point.
Do you want to start with that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
However, one of the reasons why she cited that she would make up quotes or whatever is that coaches wouldn't say anything to her, which that happens. That does happen.
Or some would just not even show up, right? Someone wouldn't show up for the interview. Is that what she meant? Or they wouldn't say anything of substance? Both? She says both?
I think both.
I watched the clip, actually, the whole thing. I didn't watch just the clip of her saying. I watched what she said. I watched the entire thing. And anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I know she said something like she'd ask a question and coach would be like, I love that perfume, that sort of thing.
Right.
And you want to know what? Sometimes Dan Lanning can be like that. Dan Lanning cannot give you a smidgen of anything. But every once in a while, you will get a deep, intense look into the man. And we did when he came out and, completely shut down him going anywhere. And for that, I very much appreciate, because you and I both know for head football coaches, a lot of times, and Dan Lanning addressed it. He said, a lot of times coaches won't come out and say that they aren't going to leave a school because of two reasons. One, they don't want to have egg on their face if they do end up leaving. And 2, they want to leverage that into getting a bigger contract. He's like, neither of those things are problems for me right now. I get paid well here. I love living here. I don't need to leverage this into something more. I'm good. And for that, I really respect him, because this college football game, as evidenced by Jimbo's lovely buyout, is sometimes I feel like it's just a scam for head coaches, man. It's like, okay, like, how can I play my way into that buyout? Now, I know everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to, whatever. But I do wonder at some point in this season if coaches, like, when it's just not going well, are like, well, whatever. I mean, at least I have that big old check waiting for me on the other 100%. Side. And Dan didn't do that. So I have a lot of respect for him for not playing the game. And I think that is going to pay off for him down the road. I mean, what he did was a huge statement in terms of recruiting. Huge. Like, players know that if they go to U of O, Dan Lanning is going to be there and he isn't going to leave.
No, they do not. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Well, at the very least, it's more definitive than almost any other college coach in the country. We could say that, okay? He's been more definitive about it than the 95% of other college football coaches. So at the, and I mean, it's definitive at least for this recruiting class. We can say that, that's coming in. Like, he's probably not, he could leave while that's happening, but like, it's very comforting for kids that are coming in to be like, okay, see this coach being like, yeah, I'm here, I'm set, I'm good. So yeah, I mean, I think that it was, I think that it was good to see somebody zag in a world of a lot of zigs. So yeah, I respect it, and I appreciate him being so definitive, because, like I said, the vast majority of coaches are not definitive.
Okay.
Please get on your horse, Aaron.
Well, okay. So we talked about this on Talking Ducks, and I kind of went on for a little bit on that, but I didn't have a chance to rebuttal, so I get a chance to rebuttal some of the stuff that Newman threw at me here today. But here's the thing. First of all, let me say this. It was a great statement, well put together, well delivered. I believe he's mostly sincere. It's possible that he could be here for 10 years, I guess. But the mistake people are making, again, is that they're forgetting that this is a business and that there's a lot of moving pieces to this business. And the idea that he says, I'm not going anywhere, people are taking that to believe he's not going anywhere ever. And that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I'm not going anywhere right now. But people are taking it as ever. I don't take it as ever. I think that's nonsense if anyone's taking it as ever. People are comparing his statement to the last statements made by Cristobal before he left and Taggart when he left. That's a mistake as well, because Taggart and Mario had job offers right there in their face that they were interested in. Lanning definitely has a program in A&M that's interested in him, but I believe Dan Campbell's their number one target, and then Lanning might be 2. I haven't seen any definitive reports that say he's number 1. I don't know, have you? Like, I haven't noticed anything that says, okay. So
I don't think there's anything that, like, really, I don't know. I personally haven't seen anything that, like, kind of has a ranking system for Texas A&M
right
now.
So now I've heard from people in the business who say definitely A&M has Lanning high on their list, and it's just wild to me that in order to steal Lanning, you got to pay $20 million buyout, then you got to pay $10 million a year, probably for 10 years. That's $120 million. You probably have to make it fully guaranteed because he has a fully guaranteed deal at Oregon. Then you're paying $120 to get Lanning for the next 10 years. Of course, you'll probably fire him in 5. And you're paying Jimbo $70. So you're paying $200 million for a coach over the next 10 years, basically. It's just wild to me. Or I guess 7 years because Jimbo would go off the books. Anyway, it's just amazing to me. So 1, no job offer in hand. And 2, I don't think that A&M is necessarily the place where it's like a slam dunk that they could steal him. There's a lot of reasons to want to go to A&M over Oregon. I know Oregon fans want to believe that Oregon is a top 5 destination program. It just isn't. It's probably never going to be. It doesn't have a recruiting base in its backyard. Its stadium is small. It just has limitations that other programs don't have. And if you're a great coach and you believe where I go, I'm going to win, you're not going to choose Eugene over Texas. Texas is one of the biggest recruiting hotbeds in the country. And to your left, you got California. And to your right, you got Florida, as opposed to being stuck in the Northwest with no recruiting base at all. Plus, you have a 107,000-seat stadium, and you have an NIL that's absolutely ridiculous. If they're putting up money to get rid of Jimbo Fisher for $70 million, you know they got a boatload of money to pay recruits. And they just had 8 5-star recruits signed a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of reasons to look at Texas A&M as a way better job than Oregon, other than the fact that the fan base and the boosters are psychopaths because they think that program should be rattling off national titles. They made inroads catching Texas in the Big 12 and then left for the SEC and thought they were going to rule the SEC. And then they had that 1 year with Manziel, right, where they beat Alabama, and they thought that was going to be every year. And it hasn't been. And it's probably not going to be. The other thing is I just can't understand why Lanning would be at the top of your list. Lanning is a good football coach who's growing as a head coach, but Lanning can't take Bo Nix with him. Bo Nix is having an amazingly special year as a 5th-year senior. It's an anomaly because of COVID. If you go back to any NFL caliber quarterback and give them a whole extra year when they should have gone to the NFL, they would rip it up as well. You can't take him with you. So if you can't take him with you, then how can you guarantee he's going to win at Texas A&M? Because you can't guarantee he's going to get another quarterback like Bo, because Bo, as a freshman, sophomore, junior, wasn't nearly as good as he has been in the last 2 years. And they're not going to be patient and let a quarterback develop in Texas, obviously, by what they're doing with Jimbo. So you take Bo off this team in terms of what he's done, might be an 8-3 team, not a team contending for the playoffs. And then Dan Lanning wouldn't be in the discussion. So that's always been weird to me when people do that with coaches. It's just like with Jimbo. Jimbo won a national title with Jameis Winston, right? After Winston left, no national contention again because he didn't have a quarterback yet. But they still gave him $100 million guaranteed because he thought he was going to come to Texas and replicate that success he had with I hate to say it, but a college level generational talent for a program, not across the country, but for one program, a guy who led you to 24 straight wins, a national title, was the number 1 pick. Those guys are tough to find. So it's just, the whole thing's just bizarre to me. But I do believe 100% that if a certain program, obviously Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, maybe Penn State, Texas is kind of psycho too, maybe a Michigan, maybe, there's other programs out there that I think could lure Danny away. This is just the wrong program at the wrong time, and he doesn't have an offer. So him saying I'm not going anywhere does not necessarily mean that much to me, because that's the last point I'll make. I just said they're comparing his statement to what what Mario and Taggart said right before they left. You need to compare these statements to what Mario said in 2018, because that's a more linear comparison, because the Miami job came open and Mario's name was linked to it. For whatever reason, Oregon fans thought Miami actually wanted Mario because Oregon fans were in their honeymoon phase with Mario and thought he was just the bee's knees. Miami had no interest in Mario. Mario had interest in Miami. Mario, according to sources, I reported this back then, reached out to Miami, and Miami said no thanks. Well, why would they want him? He became a head coach of Oregon by default. He was, I think, 7-3 at the time. He had been fired by FIU. There was no reason for him to be at the top of the list of anyone's coaching search. Even Oregon only hired him because the players wanted him and because Taggart had just ditched him. So you stay in-house, you elevate Mario, you hope for the best. Anyway, so Mario didn't get the job at Miami, didn't get a sniff, and went on this whole thing about, I'm not going anywhere, we love it here, I'm a duck, and tried to make it sound like he turned down Miami without saying he turned down Miami. Fans bought it as he turned down Miami and bought what he was saying. I knew it was nonsense because I knew if Miami had offered him a job, he'd be gone. And I said that for 4 years. I got trashed for it. I got called an effing idiot. You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. And as soon as Miami came open again, boom, he was out. So that's what you need to compare this to, because he didn't have a job offer. The other thing, USC, remember when USC came open and people threw Mario's name in on that and Mario rejected it? Mario was never in line for that job. So My point is, when a coach says I'm not going anywhere in reaction to a job he doesn't want or doesn't have an offer, it doesn't mean jack. What matters is what they say when they have an offer from somewhere they're interested in. And I do believe there's places where Lanning would go. They're just not coming calling right now. And I don't think they should be, because I don't think Lanning has proved all that much yet. He hasn't even won a conference title yet. And he's having this great season with a unique situation at quarterback that's not going to be replicated. Fans, understand right now, the odds of you having another bowl level quarterback in the next few years, not very good. So that's my rant on this thing. We'll see what happens. I think he's mostly genuine, but I do think he's still a flight risk. And scene.
I was going to say, do you want to take a breath? Do you need to go get a water break? Like, do you need someone to wipe the sweat off your brow?
Listen, there has to be someone objective around to just dissect this stuff for people. It's the same thing with Mario. I was cracking up at 18 going, oh my God, I cannot believe people are falling for this. And I do think his statements, and he's more genuine than maybe Mario was, especially with Miami. Because Miami was unique. I never understood how people did not see it was obvious he would go to Miami. I really was shocked by that. Like, I was like, when I said the day he got hired, watch out, Miami can steal him. And people are like, you're crazy about it. I'm like, what are you guys smoking? Like, what level of drugs are you smoking to think this guy wouldn't leave Oregon for Miami? So that was a little different. But I think, obviously, Bama and Georgia, people say, okay, well, that's obvious. Well, if that's obvious, then he shouldn't be saying, I'm not going anywhere. And then people shouldn't take that to mean forever. They should take that to mean I'm not going anywhere today, and I'm not interested in A&M. That's all that means.
That's fair. And I mean, I understand where you're coming from with jobs like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, that sort of thing. You get it. And I think you're right. I think that if you know those jobs come a calling, he's gonna listen. But I mean, at least you don't have I mean, those jobs are different. Those jobs, as you have said, are totally different than Cristobal leaving for Miami, Taggart leaving for Florida State, Lanning leaving for Texas A&M. Like, those are all in the same cluster of jobs. Those are like, you know, like there's like the A+ jobs, and then there's like I would put those, well, I don't know. It all depends on your perspective on those three programs. But I would put those in the A- to B+ range. So, you know, it's just different.
So what's Oregon then?
Yeah, what's Oregon then?
What's Oregon? What's their rank? Miami and Florida State have national titles.
They do. They also tend to have a lot of drama.
The expectations are ridiculous.
Yeah. They tend to have a lot of drama at those. Those three jobs have their own special level of drama to them. That is something that strings through there, and I don't think Oregon has that level of drama.
Now, and that's another point. So, I made this point on Tannen's show in Eugene yesterday. So, the thing that's very interesting about Oregon right now, especially for Lanning, is that Oregon's been burnt twice, right?
Yeah.
And so they're not going to be win us a national title or we're going to fire you, Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning can go 8-4, 9-3, 7-5, then boost back up to 10. Like, he can have kind of a roller coaster, and they're not going to blow him out because they know how hard it is to go out and find a coach, and they've been burned twice. So the pressure is not going to be the same as it would if he left Oregon to go somewhere else. Because when a program steals a coach and gives you national championship caliber money, they're expecting you to come in and contend for national titles now. And if you don't, you become garbage overnight. Just flat out garbage. The fan base will kill you because they're paying you $10 million a year. How are you 8-4? I can pay someone $5 million a year and be 8-4. I'm giving you 10. But at Oregon, because odds are, unless they find some magical quarterback or Ty Thompson somehow has finally developed, they're not going to be in the same position next year. So, but the fan base, for the most part, is going to still love Dan Lanning, and they're going to wait for a new quarterback to come, and it's going to be fine. Other programs, man, you're going to get hammered. Look at the Miami fans. There were some Miami fans who understood that they were in a rebuild mode, that Mario had to reset the roster. They needed receivers, they needed DBs, they needed, like, the roster was not where it needed to be for winning. But there were some fans who thought Mario was going to come in. He won the Rose Bowl at Oregon. He's going to come right in and do it. No, we have to rebuild that thing. And some people were impatient. But Mario has such a contract now, they're going to give him a few more years. But at Oregon, Dan's got security. They're not going to blow him out. Now, if he goes 5-7 back-to-back years, then maybe he could be in some trouble. But the job security and that's better, and the pressure is not the same at Oregon as it would be if he left Oregon to take some massive contract to go to a program that's desperate to contend.
Program.
Yeah.
Program. I will say he's committed to the program bit. I thought at some point he was gonna start saying program like the rest of us, but no. We are
he's
committed.
Gonna stick with that.
Yep.
The other thing too. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. No. Go ahead.
Just next year, things. I cannot wait for next year because 12 teams will make the playoffs. And we stop arguing and debating 4 and 5, right? It's like, I just can't. It's just so funny watching every fan base choose the arguments that benefit their team. And they're also nonsensical. And they're also just hypocrites because in situations where reversed, they'd be arguing the exact opposite. And it just makes my head hurt. So I'll be glad for it to go to 12. And when it goes to 12, I said Oregon could take a step back to 9-3 next year or what have you. But 9-3 could get you into the playoffs. Oregon, to me, in a 12-team system, even in the Big Ten, which I think will always have 2, maybe 3, I think Oregon's going to be in the playoffs probably, I'd say, every, 50%. They have a shot to be 50%. They're not going to be every year. You still have Ohio State and Michigan. Like, there's some powerhouses in that conference. USC's coming over. Washington's coming over. It's funny that Washington, USC, and Oregon all think they're coming to the Big Ten to win it every year, right? But, you're going to have a chance, a greater chance to get in with a 9-3 record. So going 9-3 is not going to be so bad, right? Because you can still get into the playoffs at 9-3. Whereas in the previous system, is for some programs, 9-3 is disaster, right? Do you remember when Oregon went 9-3 the Vernon Adams year? They probably would have won 10, 11 games had Vernon not got hurt. But it was like, oh my God, we suck. We went to the national championship game the year before. How do we suck this bad? We're 9-3. This is or 9-4 after the bowl game. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. I was like, what are you talking about? This is unacceptable. You can't expect it to be 11 wins every year. But today, that 9-3 team might have been in the playoffs. And so that changes the pressure level and creates even more security at a place like Oregon. So,
should we talk more about the Ducks?
Okay, they beat USC. We saw that coming. Caleb Williams is a magician, or it would have been a blowout. Bo was amazing. So we don't have to talk more about that. That was a week ago. Can they lose at Tempe?
They can.
Will they?
No,
they blow him out. I think they blow him out. And I think Dillingham will hook up his boy and lay down. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Yeah, just kidding. No, I think the Ducks roll in that game. Okay, Bo Nix and Heisman. Is it his to lose?
I don't know. What Jaden Daniels did last week was pretty insane.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. However, I think that because Nix is going to get an extra game that Daniels, well, I shouldn't say is going, looks like is going to get an extra game that Daniels is not going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I think that certainly helps the cause because, hello, the Heisman always has recency bias. So, I think Jaden made an incredible statement. Now it was against Florida.
Bo made a great statement against USC, which has the worst defense in the country, right?
Yep.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. But I think that a lot of people are going to dub if UW and Oregon get into the Pac-12 championship game, that is going to become not only the Pac-12 championship game, but also the Heisman game. And Jaden Daniels is not going to get a shot that week.
Right.
And so I think that becomes a significant disadvantage for him.
Right.
So it seems like a 3-man race right now between those three, which is, by the way, hilarious because you've got 2 Pac-12 quarterbacks and then another quarterback who was in the Pac-12.
I know.
Like,
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy?
This conference might actually be decent. See you later, Pac-12. It's been real. Like, what? Just again another thing where you're like, oh my god,
it's so ridiculous because it's such a fun conference. It just is. But anyway,
we didn't have on the rundown talking about the court ruling. We should probably talk about that. Anyways,
we'll get to go ahead. We'll get to that in a second. I do have a comment on Jaden though.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay. So,
but
go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, so I think ultimately it becomes the Pac-12 championship game. If it goes the way we think it's going to go, is going to become the Heisman battle as well, and Jaden's not going to get a rebuttal. So There you have it.
Okay, so I have a Heisman vote, and I have a long history of frowning at the Heisman in general because it's too quarterback weighted. That's one, and although I do think team success should be factored in, I don't think it should be the end all to be all because it's a sport where, you kind of need a lot of help to win. Like Caleb Williams is out of it because the defense stinks. Well, he can't go play defense, right? Bo Nix's defense is a lot better. If Bo Nix's defense was USC's defense, would they have another loss or two? Maybe. And then Bo Nix would be out. Jaden Daniels has 3 losses in games against Bama and Florida State. And then one other ranked team was Mississippi State. I can't remember who it was again. Missouri. No, they beat Missouri. Anyway, they lost to someone else. In those games, he went bananas. Like, in all of those games, he had good games. He did throw a pick, I think, in one, but like Bama, 3 touchdowns. I'm trying to find his complete game long here, but he had good games in those losses. From a statistical standpoint, he has the better stats. He has a 202 rating, passer rating, compared to Bo's. I mean, Bo's is right there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Bo's is bad. Bo's is 184, but Daniels is better. They both have about the same amount of passing yards, 3,100. Bo has 29 touchdowns with 2 picks. Daniels has 30 touchdowns with 4 picks. Daniels, though, has a 11.6 yards per attempt compared to 10.9. Again, we're splitting hairs here. It's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, by far, is rushing. Bo Nix has 121 yards rushing. Jaden Daniels has 918 and 8 touchdowns. He's going to rush. He's going to pass. They have 2 games left, right? And then the bowl game. So 3. He has a chance.
The bowl game doesn't count for Heisman. So.
Well, I know. I'm going to make a statistical. He has a chance to throw for 4, rush for 1,000. He's at least going to throw for 3,700 probably and rush 4,000, which does not happen very often. So statistically, he's better. He's done more for his team. But they lost to some good teams. Their defense isn't as good. So for me, when I look at all 3 of these guys, the rushing in college football, the rushing matters. Like if you're going to rush for 1,000 yards and have a 200 passer rating, that's insanity. And it shouldn't be ignored because you lost a couple more games than someone else. So if we're looking at the quarterbacks, to me, it's Jaden Daniels. Because I'm not going to ignore he's going to rush for over 1,000. He'll probably have 1,100 yards after the regular season is over. So that's where I'm at right now. But I do agree with you 100% that at the end of the day, he's not going to have that last opportunity. And if Bo Nix or Penix go into that game with the same record they have right now, and the winner, right, has a chance to go to the playoffs, and that quarterback has a Heisman moment, throws a game-winning touchdown in the last couple minutes, that guy's going to get the votes, period. Especially if Penix at 13-0, guaranteed. If it's Bo at 12-1, almost guaranteed. But yeah, close to guaranteed, especially if they have a Heisman moment, throw for 350, rush for, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Today, I would vote for Daniels because I just think he's had the better season. It's just not his fault that they necessarily lost those games.
That's totally fair in my mind. I think we should put the Carissa Thompson stuff towards the bottom. I think this flows very nicely right into Beavers UW.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's
you
talk
go
about
first.
that.
You lead this one.
Okay.
I've been talking a lot today. Motor mouth.
I mean, I thought I had some opinions coming into this podcast, but boy, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's Aaron Fentress. You're an opinion machine. Okay. Beavers UW this Saturday. I'm so excited. I'm going back to a football game for the first time in a month. Ironically,
Woo-hoo!
The last football game I went to was Oregon UW. So I love a UW game.
Wait, you're not going to Remix? You're not going to this Rip City Remix?
What? No.
You're not going to the Rip City
I'm sorry, Remix.
Sorry, I'm just playing. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sorry. A top 10 college football matchup took precedent. The question on the rundown is, can Oregon State jump back into the Pac-12 title hunt with a win? Absolutely it can. Now, they're going to need a little help since, Arizona is also coming into this week at 5-2. So Arizona would hold the tiebreaker over them, which is crazy to think about.
I phrased that incorrectly. I meant, can they get the win to jump back into the race? Not would they jump back in the race. Obviously, with the win, they would. But can they get that win? Can they win this game? They're a 2-point favorite. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, they can absolutely win this game. I mean, you're at home. UW has not had they're undefeated. They've won when they needed to, but I mean, they barely beat Utah last week, or not. I guess maybe barely is the wrong phrasing, but it was, it was
dicey.
It was dicey.
Yeah.
Oregon State mollywopped Utah. I mean, we took care of that one pretty quickly. All right. So, yeah, I mean, there's a definite chance that, this Beaver, and I mean, obviously Reeser is going to be on freaking fire, on Saturday. So that is the game of the year there. So, I think they definitely do. Oregon State's run defense has got to show up, ladies and gentlemen. They looked better last week. They did look better. Mm-hmm. But we're also playing Stanford. So, Yeah. Do I really want to judge anything on last week? No.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, they had a great week. It was Stanford. It's a team that has 2 wins in the Pac-12. So, they look better. I feel like their defense is getting a little bit healthier. They're getting some people back. I know that they're probably it seems like the signs are they're getting one of their top offensive linemen back as well, who's been out for injury. So that's good. We'll see if he actually plays or not. Jake Levengood, I believe. So that's a good sign. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. But UW has also shown that they somehow can pull off a win even when they play like dog poop. So, even when they're playing like husky poop. So yeah, we'll see. But I mean, I think Oregon State has a very, very real shot in this game, especially since it is at home. What say you?
Man, this Husky team flirted with disaster against ASU, Arizona, back when we weren't sure what Arizona was up to. And now that, that looks better that they struggled.
Yeah.
They didn't dominate Arizona because Arizona turned out to be pretty damn good, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny how things change that way. That's one of the things I love about this conference is that there's always a couple teams that rise up and pull off upsets or become better than you thought they were going to be, which always makes the conference fascinating. And they messed around with Stanford, right? Oregon State is definitely on par, obviously, with Arizona, whom they lost to. So this is a dangerous game for Washington. There's just no question. And the point spread reflects that. You would think that a 2-loss Oregon State team at home against the number 5 team in the nation who's undefeated would definitely be a dog. And they're not. They're favored. And I tried to tell some Husky fans this week, Quit worrying about the rankings. Quit trying to argue about why you should be ahead of Florida State. Their arguments are whack, by the way. And focus on the fact that you got to deal with the Beavers. Apple Cup shouldn't be a problem, and then you probably have to deal with the Ducks. If you win all of them, great. Then the rankings are going to work themselves out. But I smell absolute Beavers victory in this game. Like, I just do. Everything's lining up for this to be the type of game where Oregon State gets the Penix, maybe forces a couple of uncharacteristic turnovers. They do a better job D'ing up on the receivers on those back shoulder fades, which are just killers. I hate it when people call them jump balls. They're not jump balls. They're targeted passes to the back shoulder. It's an art to it. It's not just throw it up for grabs. And I think Oregon State finds a way to maybe defend that a little bit better because they've seen it all season long. They can prepare for it. They have a pretty solid defense, obviously. And I think they forced this game into a fourth quarter coin flip and can pull it off. And my fantasy all year, I picked the Huskies to win the conference, but my fantasy all year has been that the Oregon State, Oregon, the finals, whatever you want to call it, Civil War, formerly known as the Civil War, the final one in the way that we've known it as conference rivals will come down to the winner going to the Pac-12 title game. And that can only happen if Oregon State can beat, obviously, Washington. And then they beat Washington and Oregon. They might still need some help, right?
Well, both Arizona and them coming into this week are 5-2.
Right, so they'd be tied.
So
Arizona has a head-to-head tiebreaker. Anyway, it'll be a mess. It'll be a mess. But obviously, if Oregon State finishes 10-2 with wins over Washington and Oregon, they'd be in pretty good shape. I would imagine, because they'd have the tiebreaker over Oregon. So it would just be a mess. But regardless, that was my fantasy coming in. So I would like to see Oregon State win. One, it's good for the state. Two, it's good for that program. Who knows what's going to happen with them next year? And three, it would just throw a monkey wrench into this entire thing. So yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fantastic game on Saturday. I'm very, very excited for it. Nice. Speaking of Oregon State, I am sure, Aaron, that unlike which by the way, good for you. You saved some of your brain cells. You did not watch the entire Pac-12 courtroom hearing that took place in Colfax, Washington, a place that I have driven through many a time. Let me tell you, if you're ever driving through Colfax, Washington, go the speed limit. Oh boy,
Brenna's got some tickets. She got some.
No, actually, I've never gotten one there.
You never got one?
No, not there.
Never mind.
Oh, I've gotten speeding tickets before. Got the need for speed, baby. I've actually been very, very good since my time in Montana. But you know what? Montana was rough because I was having to drive long distances and try to get places at specific times, and that was woo. Anyways, after that, I don't think I've gotten a speeding ticket since. I don't think I have. No, I haven't. Look at me. But Colfax, it's like well known. It's like go 25 in town or else. I don't want to say I hate myself because I don't think that's the correct terminology. But I guess I'm just a little zany, and so on my off day, I was like, okay, I'll watch some of this. I'll watch this court hearing. I was like, oh, it'll probably be like half an hour. 2 hours later, and you know what's funny is that just watching it all, it was like what the judge said and how he said it and everything. I think it was pretty clear that he had his mind kind of made up before going into that hearing, which is totally fine because, to be completely honest, the Pac-12 and UW did not have a solid case whatsoever. I mean, that was like if we put it into football terminology, I'm gonna put that as like a 35-10 win for OSU and WSU.
Okay, so break down the ruling for people who don't quite understand.
The judge said that he's been raised that actions basically that actions speak louder than words, and that's what matters.
Right.
And there was ample evidence that when USC, honestly, like for OSU and WSU, it's like, oh, in this situation, they must be glad that USC and UCLA left when they did, or announced that they were leaving when they did, because then they had precedent to show that UCLA and USC didn't have any hand in conference matters, didn't have a vote on the board of directors for a year. Because now the the other schools who ended up defecting are saying that, oh, we're still allowed to be on the board for this year and we have, a right to this money, basically. We have a right to, the big thing is like the NCAA tournament shares and things like that are going to be coming in that come in over years. Those don't just come in. Yeah, I know you know this, but for people who are listening, those don't just come in one lump sum. It's not like, oh, you made the NCAA tournament, here's X amount of money for this year. Those come in over a period of years. They're divvied up. So, like that sort of stuff, the emergency fund that the Pac-12 has, that sort of thing. OSU and WSU is saying that it is their right as the only remaining members to that money. And the other schools are trying to say that they have rights to that money.
Well, they helped generate the money.
They did. But they also announced that they were leaving. So, beggars can't be choosers. I guess they're not technically the ones begging. But
they're not begging.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Defectors can't be choosers.
Yes, defectors can't be choosers. If you want to leave, great.
Okay, so what does it mean for Oregon State and Washington State to get all that cash?
It means that...
And how much we talking?
I mean, well, first of all, they don't technically have all that cash because now it's going to the Washington Supreme Court.
Of course.
So we got another court case in... I think they have to... I don't know if they've set a date for the court case. I know that they have like a date for rebuttal in the mid-20s range of November. So that is coming up soon. Like they can submit documents to the court. So, that's going to go there. And then, the UW lawyer argued that this should be a Supreme Court case because it involves so many states. Which, boy, would that be something.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how this all goes. I don't, a lot of people are saying that they should really just settle and not, have it get to that level, which I do believe that's what would happen. And, the judge in the Colfax courtroom said, hey, this is a within reason sort of thing. If OSU and WSU go overboard and take way too much money, then, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it in my courtroom. And if I don't hear about it in my courtroom, the Washington Supreme Court's going to hear about it. And he's right on that. That is what's going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, this is not over, but it feels like it's more over than not, if that makes sense. So OSU and WSU are the only votes on the board of directors right now, and they can kind of choose the path of the conference. It's looking more and more like they're going to do a scheduling alliance with the Mountain West. And that's how they're going to fill out their schedule. But, they can't make those sort of decisions until this is all kind of put to bed, I believe. So we still got a little bit for that. But generally, a huge win for OSU and WSU because we both know those athletic departments do not make near the amount of money as an Oregon or USC or UW or even in Arizona. So, they need that money in order to stay functional. So, it's a win for them. Now, obviously it's a loss for those other athletic departments, depending upon how things go, how things get divvied up. That remains to be seen. But generally, this is the lifeboat that those schools needed. And it totally like the precedent totally sets it to be the case. When you don't have UCLA and USC voting on the board of governors for a year, board of directors, whatever it is, why would then the other schools get to vote once they announce they're leaving? Even though UCLA and USC have still been in the conference as well. So yeah, it was one of those court hearings where I was like, boy, we are talking in circles and legalese, and there's a lot of nitpicking and lawyers doing lawyering things. But this seems pretty clear to me. It was obvious after Oregon State's opening statement. I was texting with people that were watching, and everyone was like, "Yeah, this is over." Like it was done. It was done. It was there. And it was funny is that the Pac-12's lawyer, like, even he was given another option. Like, they did like several rounds of rebuttal, and he was given an option to speak in the last round, and he's like, "We're good." Like, it's like, pass. And then UW's lawyer got up there and did what UW's lawyer did. Oh my gosh. He was just, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, lawyers to some level are all annoying. So there you go. But yeah, it was fascinating. It was fascinating, but it was also like, why are we going 2 hours for something that is very obvious?
Right.
So
I have to say, man, the business of college athletics just puts me to sleep.
Oh, it's gross.
It just puts me to sleep. I remember when I was at the Oregonian and I was covering the Ducks, if Larry Scott was around, I had to go participate, in the interviews with him because he would do something at halftime or whatever. If Canzano was there, Canzano was always all over that stuff. So he would go take it out, like, thank God. Because he was definitely into the covering conference and has done a great job doing that. So the times though I had to do it, I was just like, I don't even care. Yeah, Pac-12 Network, DirecTV, blah, 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 blah. We're as good as the SEC, blah, 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 blah. When I went to NBC Sports Northwest, they did not care about that stuff. Like, they're like, dude, you do not have to cover that. I was like, thank God. And I didn't. And it was amazing because I'm not saying it's not important. It's just, I hate it when business gets in the way of sports. And a lot of it's just nonsense. The stuff Larry Scott did, it was just all about Larry Scott. I mean, even the whole thing with having the headquarters in downtown San Francisco. Look at us. We're cool. We're hanging out with the cool kids, as opposed to putting it somewhere cheaper, burning all that money. Just things like that. It just makes my eyes roll. I just care about the on-field product. Let's get to that. Let's cover the games. So anyway, and I'm not saying, again, I get it. It has to be covered. It's huge. It impacts what happens on the field, but it just makes my eyes just glaze over because it's just, I don't know. It just ruins
This is different though. This is different because this is like kind of a life or death thing for OSU.
Oh no, I totally, again, I'm not saying it's not important.
Yeah.
I'm saying the whole thing, and I've said this numerous times, is so disgusting that I can't even really find the bandwidth to even deal with it because it's just more college sports nonsense. And I think college football is a clown show. The games itself are cool. What happens on the field can be fun. You get these matchups and it's cool. It's fun to watch. Like the Michigan-Penn State game. Penn State, it was packed. You got the colors of Penn State. You got Michigan coming in there. It's a boring game kind of, but the pageantry everything was great. But the fact that the Pac-12 is dead because of TV contracts is stupid. It's mindless, stupid. It's just, everything's too much about money and not about the art of sports to me. And that's why I just like, oh, whatever. But yeah, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying for me personally, I can't devote energy to it beyond what I need to. So anyway, you done with that? Are you trying to tell me I need to pay more attention to it?
No, I did have another point to make. It is floated out of my ether. So, yeah.
But no, I hope Oregon State and Washington State get all that money, and I hope they find a home, and I hope that they aren't stuck in a bad situation, and that people come cherry picking all of Oregon State's coaches and players.
It's gonna happen.
Because they're not gonna,
regardless, it's gonna happen. Regardless, it's gonna happen.
If they went to the Big 12, maybe it doesn't. But that's pretty much
They're
dead,
going to
right?
Big 12.
Right. So what, it's just going to be bad for Oregon State, especially. So anyway, we'll see what happens. All right, let's get to Carissa Thompson. Go.
Okay. Carissa Thompson said on Pardon My Take a few days ago, it could have been 2 days ago. It came on everybody's feed yesterday, right, that she would make up halftime reports with coaches where she would either she came out with another statement today, and we'll get to that. But that she would kind of like be like, oh yeah, like if she couldn't get any valuable information for coaches, or sometimes coaches just wouldn't show up for the halftime interviews, that she would be like, oh yeah, like they need to get better on third down and blah 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 blah. And the way that she phrased it, it sure sounded like she was attributing quotes to coaches that never gave them to her. Now she comes out today and says, oh, let me make sure I'm right on my phrasing here, because Lord knows we don't want to screw up quoting somebody in this situation.
Yeah, you can't screw up quoting somebody while talking about screwing up quoting somebody.
Yeah. So yeah. I said I would make up reports early in my career when I worked as a sideline reporter. I chose the wrong words to describe the situation. I've never lied about anything or been unethical during my time as a sports broadcaster. In the absence of a coach providing any information that could further my report, I would use the information that I learned and saw during the first half to create my report. For example, if a team was 0 for 7 on third down, that would clearly be an area they need to improve on in the second half. In these instances, I never attributed anything I said to a player or coach. That's not what she said during the podcast. I have nothing but respect for sideline reporters. Blah, 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 blah.
No, okay. So she's saying she didn't put words in the coach's mouths.
That is what she is saying.
But that's not what she indicated the other day. Or did she say she made up what the coach would say? Or did she say she just made up the report?
And see, I don't want to play a clip right now, because Lord knows it's that's not really a podcast etiquette sort of situation. Okay. So I'm looking at an athletic story right now to make sure I have everything right here. I've said this before, so I haven't been fired for saying it, but I'll say it again. I would make up the reports sometimes because the coach wouldn't come out at halftime, or it was too late, and I didn't want to screw up the report. So I was like, I'm just going to make this up, because first of all, no coach is going to get mad if I say, hey, we need to stop hurting ourselves. We need to be better on third down. We need to stop turning the ball over and do a better job of getting off the field. They're not going to correct me on that. So I'm like, it's fine. I'll just make up the report.
Okay, so is it... Okay. I could listen to that and then I'd wonder what exactly she meant. Is she saying she would make up and say the coach told me we need to work on third downs, or is she saying that she would just say they need to work on third downs?
I mean, no coach is going to get mad if I say, hey, we need to stop hurting ourselves. We need to be better on third down. We need to stop turning the ball over.
Right. So, again,
when you say we...
But she wouldn't say we. She would have to say, if I say... No coaches get mad at me if I say that they said we. She doesn't say that. She said, if I said we. Maybe she misspoke and meant to just say, if I said they. And she said we. See, you see how it gets kind of twisted? Because if she's denying that's what she meant, how people are taking it, then I don't know. It's kind of a gray area. Maybe she's covering her ass. Maybe she misspoke. What we need to do is we need to see the clips. Like, which game is she talking about? Give us the game where the coach didn't come out and you made up this report, and let's watch the report. Because if the report, she says, it's clear they need to work on their third downs, as opposed to the coach told me they need to work on their third downs, then there's your smoking gun. Either way.
Yeah, I mean, I just know as somebody who has done a fair amount of sideline reporting in my career, it is almost always like that first hit coming out of half. It's you're always referencing what the head coach told you.
Right, but if the coach doesn't show up,
yeah. If the coach doesn't show.
So my thing when I heard this is I was like, if the coach doesn't show up, why wouldn't you just give your own original report? Why would you attribute it to the coach? And she's saying now she didn't attribute to anybody. She did make up her own report.
Okay. And so here's something that I think is a little bit different for views for you and I and how we see these things. Or at least, yeah. I think that as the sideline reporter, it's really important to remain, because I think you tweeted something about why don't you put your opinion out there about how the team did or whatever. As a sideline reporter, I'm not so interested in putting my opinion out there. I don't think it really matters that much. And it's not, when you're having to deal with these coaches so much and you're having to be on the field with them, I think that it just doesn't really work.
But okay,
I personally wouldn't feel comfortable. Okay, let me finish.
Go ahead.
I personally wouldn't feel comfortable putting my opinion out there about, hey, they weren't good on third down, blah, 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 like, whatever. Now, okay, I think that what you could do is, yes, with information you learned earlier on in the week that may relate to that subject matter, you could say, hey, I wasn't able to catch up with blah, blah, blah at a halftime for X reason, so that it's not your fault. But earlier on in the week, this is what he had to say about their third down woes or whatever. That's a way to do it. That's a way to make it work. And I think that's the best way to do it. But there is no situation in which I'm going on, a broadcast and saying, this is what the coach told me at a halftime.
Right.
And
yeah, that's crazy.
Did not happen. And it just, I don't see, that's really hard for me to envision somebody going into that halftime hit, that out of halftime hit, and dancing around and not making it sound like the coach said something to you, because everybody knows what that hit is about. Everybody knows that hit is the, hey, I talked to blah-de-blah after the half. And that's what that hit is. So the viewer is already going into that hit, unless you clarify it, assuming that that's what that is. So no matter what, even if you don't say, if you just say, hey, they weren't very good on third down, that's something my brain can't compute it. I'm sorry. Like, it is always attributed to the head coach in that situation, unless you very clearly clarify it in a way that, like I told you. That is so standard practice protocol. And I mean, how many halftime hits have you seen where somebody's talked about, hey, this is something, or the, at a halftime sideline report hits where somebody's talked about, hey, this is something they need to improve upon, that don't attribute an interview at halftime with the head coach?
I honestly do not pay attention to those.
I know.
Because they're meaningless.
But I am somebody who does. So there you go.
Okay, but here's my thing. This is what I don't get. It's one of the things that bug me. If the coach doesn't show, and it's part of his obligation to show, isn't it?
Especially in the NFL, it is, yeah.
So if the coach doesn't show, then say the coach didn't show.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
So, Coach Tomlin was supposed to come out of half, but we didn't catch him. But it's clear. And then to me, like the third down thing, if it's obvious, if they're 2 of 10 on third downs, how could a coach be upset if you say, key issue, third down or something? But I like your idea of going back to maybe something that was said during the week. Like you could say, They said during the week third downs were going to be key for them, and they're only 2 of 10, right? So now you're referencing something they said, and you're still stating something obvious, and you still get your hit in, right? But to me, I'm gonna say the coach didn't show. Like that.
In that situation, I'm big on don't do a sideline hit unless you need to do a sideline hit, because it's, it can just get to be too much, or it just cannot add to the broadcast. So in that situation, if the coach doesn't show, does the sideline reporter really need to come on the broadcast and say he didn't show? I think the color guy, the play-by-play guy can handle that and just be like, hey, we weren't able to catch up with him at the half, but obviously they need to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
We don't need,
100%.
I saw somebody say, I think it was Chris Budden. She said, and I so agree with this. You do not get into sideline reporting because you want to be on TV. That you are not going to get that many hits on TV. It's just not going to happen. Like when I sideline for UP basketball, I get one hit on camera normally. Maybe. In fact, you want to know what? A week ago, let's see, on Sunday was the first time I got 2 quote unquote sideline hits on camera since I've been doing it. And that's not because of anything they do. It's just we were just trying to work me into the broadcast last year. And I was like, you know what? Let's not make this too complicated. And that's fine with me. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I didn't get into sidelining to be on camera. I got into sidelining because I like being in the thick of things. I like being able to run around and find out information. So okay, hey, we've got 2 players that are hurt, on each team. Let's go talk to the staff, figure this out. What's going on? Okay. I can relay that via the broadcast. And by the way, a lot of times with sidelining, when you relay something to people, you don't necessarily get the credit. A lot of times it ends up being the play-by-play guy who ends up relaying that. That's fine, because I'm working on a team and I'm in the thick of it and I'm doing my thing and I'm helping my booth out. And that's what really matters. That is what really matters in that situation. So sorry, that was a total tangent.
But what do you do though when the producer says, no, we're coming to you anyway? Okay. If you're doing what Carissa does or was doing, and you don't have the coach, and like you said, they can just handle it or not come to you, right? You don't have the coach, don't come to you, and they can say upstairs, we didn't get the coach, but they say, no, we're coming to you, give us something.
Okay. I can give you something. I can give you something about the mood of the team coming out of the locker room. Okay? That's something I can definitely do. I can give you something related. I mean, before I go into a game, I type out all my sideline hits because I want to make sure I have all that information in front of me so that when something relevant happens, I'm like, oh yeah, that. Let's talk about that. So it's just, that's fine. If you want to come to me no matter what, sure, great. Let's go. Awesome. Totally fine with it. But there's other ways to do it, to work around it. Right. And I'm just, I can't process doing one of those sideline reports and not attributing it to the coach, but making it sound like one of those.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
At the end of the day was what she was doing because she obviously wasn't clarifying on the broadcast. So yeah, it's just disappointing. And my mentions have been wild for the last 24 hours. I'm at the point with Twitter where it's like, okay, I go on, I clear my mentions, I get off. Because I try not to respond to too many people because it takes up too much of your time and energy, and that's not my thing. There was somebody who said there was somebody who was talking along this vein that was like, well, what would you do, whatever. And I said something along the lines of, you don't need to have that report. It doesn't screw up the broadcast. And you're right, it doesn't. And that's what I meant. It doesn't ruin the flow of the broadcast if it's like, oh, we don't have this one hit from Brenna. I would rather not do it than lie, obviously.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay? So what I meant is that it doesn't screw up the broadcast. Now, does it help the broadcast when you have that sort of stuff? I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt it. I can, see your point about big time coaches not wanting to say things, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and it really, and that's one of the kind of the nice things sometimes about working smaller events, by the way, is that you do get good stuff. Like I worked the Westland Tualatin 6A boys state basketball championship game last year. I mean, Westland boys basketball was insane last year, right? They played god awful in the first half of that game. And honestly, they really never woke up. But I go to their coach at halftime and I said, "Is that the worst half of basketball you guys have played this year?" And he looks at me and he goes, "That's the worst half of basketball I've been around, period." That's a great sideline report.
Right.
I'm like, "Thank you. All right." And that's what I talked about. I was like, "Hey, I caught up with Robert Key and he said this to his team, and I did ask him at the end. I said, "Hey, was that the worst half of basketball you guys have played this year?" And he said, "That's the worst half of basketball I've been around, period." So, you do get good stuff. There is a possibility to get good stuff. Now, the higher up you get, the less good stuff you're going to get, I would say, but there's still a possibility of it. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean in terms of that. But yeah, no, my mentions have been, I mean, it's a rough scene in there. So, so some of them are very nice. Some of them are very nice. Some of them are
the problem with Twitter is that you get exposed to the morons and they can talk to you. They can say something to you. The dumbest people on the planet can say.
There's only one that I quote tweeted.
My haters are some of the dumbest people on planet Earth. Some of the things they come up with to hate me about are just like, wow, did you really come up with that and then type it?
Yeah, there was one that I quote tweeted because I found it to be particularly egregious. So we did that.
Was it the one about being hot?
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
We're not going to talk about it on the pod. If you would like to go find it on my Twitter, you can go find it.
But that's the kind of thing where it's like, did you really type that? You thought this was, I'm going to type this. This is contributing to the conversation.
So the whole thing, regardless, even if she, I just can't, especially now, I'm a verbal processor. If anybody on this podcast that's listening to this podcast right now can't tell. And as I just talk it out more and more, I'm just like, well, no, yeah, you should never go on your broadcast and just kind of talk in platitudes and not clarify that it didn't come from the head coach. You shouldn't go on the broadcast and talk in platitudes and not clarify that it didn't come from the head coach that day. It's just everybody's going to assume that because that's always what that hit is. That is 10 out of 10 what that hit is. I've never heard somebody just like not say, "Hey, I talked to blah, blah, blah at halftime and they said this." It always starts like that. And if you aren't starting it like that and you're just leaving it ambiguous, everybody's going to assume that it is that. Right. So regardless, you be lying.
You be lying. Okay. Moving along real quick.
Disappointment. Sorry, just one more thing. Very disappointing to see the amount of people that are like, "Oh, sideline reporters are stupid. They're only there for eye candy, blah, 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 blah." Like, I'm sorry. I work my butt off, especially like football games. Football games are, you want to see how I looked at the end of the 6A OSAA state championship last year? Hot mess, baby. Rain the entire game. But like you're running around, you're going different sidelines, you're trying to figure things out. Like it's not, I'm sorry, it's not this like glamorous, like, I mean, I think people think it's this glamorous job. Guess what? Your color and your play-by-play guy gets to sit up in a heated booth. I get to sit down on the sideline in 25 degrees or whatever it is. And it could be raining. It could be snowing. It could be anything. And I got to get through that. And I got to do it. And that's fine with me. That's what I sign up for if I'm doing that sort of thing, because that's what I love. I love being in the thick of things. But it's not just something, it's not this like glamour, like I don't know. People don't see the realities of it, which I totally understand because they only see the finished product. That's the way the world works. I understand that. But just to say that like sideline reporters are only there to add a pretty face to the broadcast is disappointing, because the vast majority of sideline reporters I know work their butts off, run around the field. If you haven't seen the video of Molly McGrath running out to, I forget what school it was, might have been West Virginia, sprinting her butt to go get the head coach of that team. Like, that is what we do.
Right.
Like, that is what we do. It's not this like that's the reality of the situation, is that you are trying to outrun a bunch of students trying to get to this head coach. It's interesting. I mean, last year at the 6A OSAA state championships, I got caught up in the like West Lynn celebration. My earpiece got knocked out. I never found it. So I like looked at my camera at my photog and I was like, you're cueing me, because I can't hear anything. My earpiece is somewhere out on this field. Couldn't tell you where. So that's the reality of it. Anyway, sorry, I'm done.
Yeah,
okay, goodbye. No, you got to get on your horse. I got on mine. So
no, 100%. This is your area of expertise, amongst other things, of course. But I've never done it. So yeah, I've done hits. I've done hits like after games for TV and stuff like that, but not during a game, which obviously is crazy town. I've seen people do it, obviously. And the thing about it, like the sideline reports where you're updating on injuries, right? Or just something that's going on in the court that people might not have noticed. That stuff's valuable. The problem is these coach interviews, like there's most of the time, I mean, what's the coach going to say? They're not going to give away certain things. So it's so hard to get anything truly insightful. So 90% of them are just like, why did we even do that? And that's on the producers for putting the sideline reporter in that situation, not on the reporter. It's not the reporter's fault that they're being put in this no-win situation where it's almost impossible to get anything substantial. But that's just the way sports coverage is. They have airtime to fill, and they want to try and keep things always going, as opposed to having, some of the dead air or maybe a commercial spot they don't have like they used to have back in the day when they didn't have sideline reporters. So it just is what it is. And it's unfortunate this has been such a controversy. But I've seen a lot of women reporters out there saying how, this makes us look bad. And, the intelligent people in the world, and sometimes they're few and far between, are not going to hold this against all women reporters. Just like I don't believe intelligent people are going to hold the Mel Tucker thing against all African-American coaches. But it's kind of a shame, too, that becomes a talking point as well. Because basically what everyone's saying is, oh, yeah, there's a lot of racist, sexist people out there in power. That's basically what you're saying. If you're saying that, all women are painted with the same brush because of this thing, and all black coaches are painted with the same brush because of Mel Tucker's dumbass. All right. Moving on.
Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I do have one little thing. Sure. I love that Big Cat, Barstool Big Cat, came out and was like, everybody's overblowing this, blah, 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 blah. You guys are the ones who released the clip and put it on Twitter.
Oh.
like, you guys are the ones that made it big.
Right.
You guys thought it was, you guys knew when she said that. You were like, oh, you guys knew that was going to hit a chord. Yep. You guys put the video out there, and now you're like, oh, people are making it too big of a deal. You're the one who did it.
Right.
Maybe you didn't personally do it. Obviously, you didn't personally do it, but your company did.
Your company did.
Anyways, yeah. I found that 100%. To be chef kits. So rich. All right.
Just moving real quick. On. Blazers bad. We knew this was coming. It's getting bad. They might not win a game again until December 21st, home against Washington. They will be underdog to big underdogs in every game between now and then. Utah, I think Utah will come in favor next week. The schedule is brutal. They're playing second-round picks. They're playing G League guys because of the injuries. Ant could be back in a couple weeks. That will definitely help. But, yeah.
I mean, it's still like a month.
Yeah. I don't know. I did a whole Blazer podcast. People can go check out Blazer Focus podcast if they want a ton of details on what's going on with the Blazers. We're not going to do that here. But if you have a take, if you have anything you want to offer, you go right ahead, Brenna.
I mean, like I said, maybe it's me. But I was just gonna say, how are you doing? Are you doing better than the Blazers? All right, cool. And that's not me making fun of them. It's just like, oh my gosh, like how many injuries can one team have, especially to like one position group too? That's the weird thing. Yeah. It's like it's not like it's spread out. It's just guards. So yeah, it's just
Robert Williams, guards and Robert Williams.
And Robert Williams, you're right. Yeah. You're right. But I think, if it was Robert Williams and 1 to 2 guards, we're fine. But that is not the situation. So, yeah, it's rough out there. When you're having to convert guys from 2-way contracts to full contracts and all that sort of stuff, it's it's just a rough scene. I feel bad for them because it's out of their control. Stinks. It kind of felt like they were starting to find their groove, and then just like toy soldiers, they just went down, baby. It was just knock them down. So
they're just completely overmatched. And I mentioned earlier Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell stood out like a sore thumb on Wednesday night. He's clearly by far the best player on the court. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wanted to do it, inside, outside. His passing was nice. He's a big dude, man. He's built like a running back, fast, athletic. Everyone knows who Donovan Mitchell is. But here's the thing that I thought about while watching Donovan Mitchell run around there at like 6'1", is that he is what the Blazers believe Scoot Henderson's going to be, because they call Scoot Henderson generational and transcendent. So that's what they think Scoot Henderson's going to be. So if you're a Blazer fan wondering, and you watch that game, what Donovan Mitchell did is what they hope Scoot's going to be, that dominant. And that's what they told everyone he's going to be, because they use the words generational and transcendent. And no one's really called Donovan Mitchell generational, even though he's clearly an elite guard. So if Scoot becomes that, you hit, and it's great. And it's going to help your franchise with him and Sharp, and maybe Aiden could be the number 3. If they keep Grant, Aiden could be the number 4, and it won't matter. But if Scoot doesn't become that, and so far, a week or 2 into the season, he clearly not even remotely close, but he's 19, and
I don't want to judge that.
No, I know, 100%. People calling him bust or stupid. You got to let this roll. But he did come out pretty shaky. But yeah, that's to me, that's the floor for what Scoot has to be if drafting him and moving off building around Dame and refusing to trade that pick is going to pay off. That's the floor, is Donovan Mitchell. If he's not as good as Donovan Mitchell, then you're never going to be in a position with this young group of players who are growing up to contend, because you would have missed on that pick, and that's going to kill you. So just throwing that out there. We all good?
Yeah, boy, have we talked a lot.
I know. Did we skip Timbers and?
Yeah, we're definitely skipping that.
Do you want to touch on Travis and Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say I love it. Keep fighting the good fight, kids. I cannot wait to see her at the Kansas City and Eagles game.
She mentioned him in concert in one of her songs. And then there's a video of her running and giving him a big giant jump in his arms hug, right? That's what that all has the Swifties all excited. Right? That's the big thing.
She just has never been like a huge
public affection.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of PDA. I mean, like she's especially over the last few years, because her ex Joe Alwyn was like very much against that sort of stuff. Like very, very, very much.
Who's her ex? Just like
what?
Who's her ex?
You wouldn't know him. He's like a C-list actor at this point.
He didn't like public affection with Taylor Swift?
He was like super against all that sort of stuff. Like
really?
They never like walked a red carpet together, anything like that.
Ew.
Yeah, there's like hardly any pictures of them together except for like if they're going out on a date.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he feel intimidated by the situation because everyone was going to refer to him as the boyfriend as opposed to
I just think he wasn't about that life.
Man, you would think most people would be like, yeah, I'm with Taylor. Oh, wait, where you want to go tonight, Taylor? Oh, let's go. Can we call the paparazzi? Let them know we're going to be there. I want as many pictures as possible out there that I'm with you.
Yeah, but I've seen stuff that she's going to go to the Eagles and Chiefs game, which like obviously is a big deal for the Kelceys because Jason Kelce's on the Eagles. So yeah, she's going to do a show in Brazil, November 19th, and then turn around and go to Monday Night Football on the 20th.
Woo!
That's some commitment. I know the time change isn't as crazy. It's only a couple hours, so it's not really that big of a deal. But shout out to her, man. She's showing up. I appreciate it. And it's just nice to see her be able to live her life, not have to keep it under complete wraps, and have him be cool with it, and kind of he kind of lets her choose how much she wants to be public about things, So I just appreciate it. I appreciate all of it. I respect it. Shout out Travis Kelce. This has been a fun ride, and I'm ready to keep the gravy train going. So let's keep it going until the wheels fall off, because that'll probably happen. But I'm enjoying it right now, and it's nice to see her happy. And I love Taylor, so there you go. Whatever. I'm taking a nice girl stance on this, and that's what we're going with.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We're good.
All right. We're good. Man, we went hour 20. Good Lord. Of course, my Lanning rant was 30 minutes, but
I said, did you need a glass of water? Did you need someone to
I needed
wipe
oxygen.
the sweat off
I needed an
brow?
oxygen tank after that. All right. Thanks for listening to the Oregonian Sports podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our subtext feature by texting 503-386-0095. That's 503-386-0095. You will receive a text back with a link. You can click on it and start your 14-day trial. We will be back. We gotta go early next week, Brenna. I was traveling this week, so we couldn't go early. So that's my bad. But we gotta go early this week. It's gonna be Thanksgiving break, and we got to react to Oregon State, Washington, and start talking about Oregon State. So let's do this Monday or Tuesday. You good?
All right. Let's get it done, baby.
Okay. All right. We'll catch y'all later on the Oregonian Sports podcast.